it's Maria Barcelos, Executive Director of the Gatehouse, and today on my lovely episode, I have Lacey Ford, who is an art therapist, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about art therapy. Lacey, if you want to take it away and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what is the name of the center that you co-founded.
My name is Lacey Ford. I'm a registered psychotherapist and art therapist. So I did my training at the Toronto Art Therapy Institute in Toronto. And yeah, the organization I'm with and have co-founded with Pearl Lee in 2014 is called Full Circle Art Therapy Center.
Thank you, Lacey. Just want to talk a bit about what is art therapy and how does Full Circle collaborate with the Gatehouse? If you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So art therapy, for its, I guess, general definition, is essentially psychotherapy and also visual art making. So yeah, essentially what it's used for is being able to extend our expression through visual representation. With the Gatehouse, we've been in collaboration with them for, I think it's been 4 years now. I don't know, time's going by so quickly. But yeah, so basically what we started doing there was, groups for survivors of childhood sexual abuse through art therapy. What that group helps people do is look at the impacts of trauma and again, using art therapy to help with self-regulation while they're going through that process of looking at the impact.
Let's dispel some of the myths around art and art therapy. Do you have to be an artist to engage in art therapy?
Definitely not. Most people always think they do. But I actually like to tell people it's maybe better if you don't have an artistic background, because then you'll just be expressing yourself through the art, just following your innate intuition. And you won't be restricted thinking about like the techniques that you'll be using or about creating a perfect image or anything about that. It's really, the focus is on the process itself, it being therapeutic on its own, and then using the end product for more reflection and maybe more clarity, right? Because a lot of the time when we have emotions and thoughts, if they're kind of just sitting in our mind, it can be kind of hard to distinguish, going through different thoughts at one time, right? Or emotions. So kind of externalizing allows us to have that different perspective where we can just observe our thoughts and emotions and then choose what we would like to do with them from there on.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Lacey. And it kind of you kind of touched on my next question was about like, how does a therapist create safety in the sessions for people, especially when they have, childhood sexual abuse or other forms of trauma?
I think a big part, not only in art therapy, but in therapy in general, is always, of course, building that human connection with the person, right? Because they're not going to open up to you if they don't trust you, not only as a therapist, but also a person, right? That has shared, maybe not shared perspectives, but that they trust that you can be empathetic and understanding at a point, right? So a lot of my sessions just focus on, getting to know that person, knowing about how they kind of see and view the world and how can I kind of understand them as a person. And then from there, in terms of like the art component, I like to kind of just start out more general, starting out with more rigid materials where they might be more used to using them, like pencil, crayons, markers, things that you might have used in childhood or just in your day-to-day lives. And then just kind of understand like how open they are to the art experience to begin with. And then if I notice that they want to explore more art materials, then maybe I'll kind of just progress into there, seeing what they naturally move towards, what is something maybe that is difficult for them to use, and just keeping an eye on those parts as well. Like what are they already comfortable using, and kind of going with where they're at is really important. And sometimes I'll actually even do art alongside with them. So then it doesn't feel like I'm watching them the whole time. Because obviously that could be very intimidating. You're already going to therapy to talk about things or express yourself, those vulnerabilities. And then on top of that, someone's watching you while you're doing that. And that can be a lot of pressure. So yeah, sometimes I'll do that, or if I notice like it's becoming too much with them through the talking or the art, we may slow down and do like mindfulness practices, like grounding, either through the art materials or different modalities. So yeah, safety is a huge component, but I feel like it kind of shifts and changes throughout the relationship. But I feel like, yeah, just building that safe bond in that relationship at the beginning is very key.
Definitely, Lacey, especially, safety being an integral part of the healing journey for people who have survived childhood sexual abuse and other forms of trauma. I want to talk a little bit about some of the videos that you've been doing on your own YouTube channel, just to get people introduced into art therapy and maybe getting that comfort level being built up. I know you've done a couple already. I know at the Gatehouse you did one that was quite interesting where you had people draw their breath. Can you tell us a little bit about that activity?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the video series we're doing is on YouTube and IGTV. So it's called Art Therapy at Home. So it was just a great, or just an idea for people to, learn more about art therapy and just be able to try it on their own, specifically now, right? Where most people have to stay at home more often. Yeah, so for the drawing the breath activity, it's really focused on just kind of bringing your awareness in the here and now and being able to connect with your breath, not only mentally, like through doing that, or physically, sorry, but then also extending that expression, externally. So then it actually gives you something to focus on while you're following your breath as well. So it can help people, create more focus, and also it can help them feel more grounded while they're doing it as well. Because sometimes, especially, I find especially with trauma, it can be really intimidating for people to go to the breath right away because it's internal, right? And that's where a lot of the discomfort lies within people who've experienced trauma. So I find, the breath and drawing it can be kind of that bridge point where you can kind of safely do that and not have to only focus on the breath the whole time, but be able to take breaks and just look at the drawing that you're creating. And so that's kind of the focus of it.
That's really cool, Lacey, especially, talking about focusing on the breath. It's such a integral part of human existence. Without breathing, we don't exist, right? Without water, we don't exist. But a lot of times trauma survivors don't focus on their breathing and find themselves in very shallow breaths, or sometimes in the hyperventilation area of breath, especially if there's other conditions like anxiety or depression happening for them. Thank you for sharing that. What are you offering now? Is Full Circle reopening now?
Yeah, what we're doing is just doing a slow startup. Like just, I think there's only 3 of us going in starting next week, 1 day a week. So primarily a lot of our services are still virtual, online and on the phone, but we are opening up that option to come in for folks who would like to, again, just with limited capacity and with those safety protocols. And then, as you already mentioned, we're doing the IGTV. I'm doing another video this week. I think I don't even know how many now. There's quite a few. So there's also a library you can go to it there as well. And then we're going to be doing an online free group as well. I just need to work out a few things this week. So I'm hoping we can announce the start date next week on our social media, just so people can become aware and start signing up for that as well.
What is one thing that you want people to know about art therapy?
I think kind of what we began with in the conversation, just that it is really accessible to everyone and anyone. Like I know, for one instance, people have the misconception I must be an artist. The other misconception that comes up a lot of the time is, it's only for young children or older adults. However, that's not true at all. Also, like I've worked a lot with like youth. I primarily work with adults who've experienced trauma. And it's really beneficial for all ages. It's accessible to all ages, in particular because it can have that nonverbal component to it. So it can be really helpful for people who maybe struggle with verbal communication. And then in terms of like trauma, that's also another area where it can be really helpful, just because again, that ability to communicate without words, right? Because a big part of the trauma is that, that feeling of loss of voice and agency. So it can be really difficult for people to share their story. Or what I do in the beginning of working with trauma survivors is we really focus on how can we use the art for self-regulation, because that's such a huge foundational piece, right? Before doing any processing or things like that. I think those are the key things that I think are really useful for it. And as I mentioned before too, that externalization piece is so useful too. Through the release process, it can be really therapeutic. But then again, just having that observer perspective on it is so valuable.
Thank you so much, Lacey. Very meaningful information. Always awesome to spend time with you. All the best, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.